You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara IceDogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara IceDogs.
Perlini! Overtime! IceDogs win! They score! Verhage was also jamming away. It's a power play goal for the IceDogs. And they score! Hosang, first goal as an IceDog. Strom stops Shipley. Richie scores! Gets it to Akil Thomas. Thomas has the angle coming in. He scores!
Welcome into another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in all four of their great Niagara region locations. Brandon Caputo and Cam Halbert are with you for an impromptu episode discussing the IceDogs captaincy change today, moving Captain Gavin Bryant to the Peterborough Petes for some draft picks, as well as naming Kevin He as the franchise's 19th captain in their franchise's history. Thank you to everybody tuning in today on the video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell. And thank you to everybody that's tuned in on demand. Cam, it's a pretty interesting day here for us to come on. I know we were getting ready for our end-of-month recap show that we usually do here in video, along with our post-game recaps that we do in audio live from the Meridian Center after every home game. But didn't expect that we'd have a random episode this week, but I'm happy to come on and talk about it. It's definitely, something that... is not easy to see, but hopefully there's going to be some positivity coming out of this, because this is a scenario that we had talked about for pretty much the entire season after Lashko was claimed off of waivers right before the preseason began, that Niagara had an overage problem, and one of the four were going to have to go, and they had made the decision here on October 22nd that person that was going to be moved was their captain, Gavin Bryant.
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of talking about the elephant in the room when doing the game recaps, and obviously as the season's gone along in a surprising fashion to how well Niagara's done, I think we expected them to be far better this year than the prior 2 years, but I don't think we could have ever dreamed the start that they've gotten off to already, leading the Eastern Conference at a 7-2 record. I think that it's very difficult because Gavin was so well loved in the room and by the fans and in the community and by us. It's tough because I think that when you see how well the team has done and the players that they have as overagers, it is very difficult to envision the team being better by removing one of the three with the start, right? This is a pure business and hockey team trade where, obviously it's very difficult, but in the end, it is still a business, and playoffs are almost, mandatory this year for Niagara and its fans. And with the start, I don't know how you argue taking out Lashko, who really is the kind of the player that threw the wrench in the works here. I don't think anyone expected, whether the team or the fan base or anyone expected a player like Lashko to get waived right before training camp and then sign and decide to play in Niagara. And then him having, just insane success already with Kevin He. And then you've got Flores. We saw once Charlie Robertson, kind of didn't play up to where the standards were so far. So in the season, not that he played terribly. He went with the 2-2 record when Flores had his 4-game suspension, but it just kind of highlighted how important Flores is to the team. And then lastly, you have Van Vliet, who was just a completely missing element on the past 2 years with how hard he plays and the big kind of haul they had to pay to acquire him. It's just very difficult to envision how you would remove one of them once Gavin's injury, once he was back from injury. So, as a fan, it sucks because he is just so well loved. And in all honesty, when you think of captains in hockey, you want someone that battles and is an offensive leader and great in his community. And Gavin truly was one of the best captains, even though it was for a very short time. But as someone who follows the team and wants to see them succeed to the best of their ability, it's really understandable. And as the team gets better over the next couple of years, there's probably going to be a lot more conversations like this where players have to get moved simply out of necessity and not because they want to move them, right? Or the player wants to be moved. So it's tough. And I wish Gavin nothing but the best of luck. But yes, it is kind of a tough talk to have on our recap show, or on our monthly show, but definitely one that needed to happen.
Yeah, and it's the shelf life of junior hockey, right? Unfortunately, you get attached to these players, and they do so much for the community and the teams they're part of. And then, when they reach a certain time, it's they have to get moved either for them to grow or for the team to develop their players. And like you mentioned, just with the way the other three overagers were playing, with Gavin not in the lineup, still recovering from his off-season shoulder surgery, it just really made it apparent that. And when we talked to him on our season preview show, he said that, the room is in a good place. They've got a good culture there. And all props to him for being able to turn that around. He came in a very difficult time. He had gotten here from Owen Sound right before the beginning of last season, was awarded an A, and then when Zach Lavoie was traded at last year's trade deadline, he was given the C on a team that really had no chance of making the playoffs, and he showed up to work every day with a smile on his face and didn't complain about it. He was as stand-up of a guy as you're going to find in this league as a captain, and we appreciate, him giving us time all the time. He was always great to us, on the off the ice and as well with all of our content and things like that, and just a great guy with the Gav's Corner initiative, which I hope that he continues on wherever his next stop is, past Peterborough and into pro hockey. But again, it's just one of those tough situations and tough conversations. That is the cruel part of the game that we love in hockey, and you just wish that Gavin will go on to do big things, and his footprint will be here in Niagara for a very long time, even though he's only here for about a season and a half. But again, Peterborough is not going to be a team that's going to be in the playoff on, at least showing right now, with an 0-7-1 record. So maybe January comes around in the deadline, and Peterborough is able to move Gavin again, and maybe he goes to a team to really give him an opportunity for his final season to have a deep playoff run. That's the one thing that you kind of look at the trade and say, Peterborough was really the only team in the league that looks like they're not going to be a playoff team whatsoever. But again, things could change, and they could go on to do something. They've got an issue too, Cam, because now Peterborough has 4 overagers and getting into the same problem that Niagara just had. But I think it's a little bit different situation. I think they're most likely going to be, cutting one of their overagers. But again, I don't want to speak for the Petes in this scenario. But as you mentioned, I think Andre Loshko being, available on waivers and then picking him up as an overage import really changed the way that the Ice Dogs were going to go about this. I don't think they went into the season saying, okay, Gavin Bryant's going to be the guy that we're going to trade. I think they just came in and realized, okay, we have a chance to get this guy that could be a top-line player for us, so Seattle Kraken prospect. Put him with Kevin He. They've done really well, and just Gavin hasn't been in the lineup, obviously. So, something had to give there, and Loshko kind of forcing the management's hand to do something here.
Yeah, I mean, Loshko has 13 points in 9 games, and we talk about it in the last few recaps. It's not just his offensive output. It's that he plays a very good defensive role as a centerman to really what Gavin brought, to be honest. He just has a lot more offensive flair to him than Gavin, but that's something to take away from Gavin. But I don't think that he was in the plans. I think that it was a surprise to us and to be honest, probably a lot of the rest of the league. Given that he was willing to come here, maybe he saw, he was kind of explained that Niagara is going to be in their cycle, and the playoffs look much more in hand than they were in prior years. But still, I think that once that happened, we kind of knew there was this elephant in the room every game where something's got to give here. And the Ice Dogs did their due diligence and kept him long enough to, in case something happened, whether one of the other overagers got hurt or something along those lines. Him going to Peterborough, obviously tough because, in your overage year to go to a place where you're not going to make the playoffs, I would be blown away if he is on Peterborough's roster at the end of the season. There will be a team where he would be an upgrade for an overage spot within one of the other 15 teams that will make the playoffs. So, I wish him nothing but the best. And whatever team he ends up on, they are getting a heck of a player, especially when you think of like what he brings and what he would bring in a playoff series. Like he is the perfect playoff player. So again, this is nothing, no slight on Gavin. It's just simply, this is something that Niagara hasn't had to deal with in a long time. Just an abundance of great talent and they're all performing well. So to an extent, I applaud Niagara for making the very tough decision. I think it could have been easier to move Van Vliet or something along those lines and keep Gavin. But again, those three players just really bring a different dynamic, each one of them, and their importance is just it can't be talked about enough to what they've done to the team so far to lead to a number one in the Eastern Conference after being last place the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, and something interesting with Gavin, he led the team in points last year, which was very quiet because of how good of seasons Rubrick and Kevin he had. And then you look at it this year, and we heard Ben Boudreau in our last live game recap there on YouTube that we do after every single game, by the way. If you didn't know, we record our live post-game shows right after the game live on our YouTube live stream right from the Meridian Center. But he talked about having 9 centers on the team already, and that doesn't even continue. That doesn't even include having Gavin Bryant in your lineup. So I think if you look at it, and if Niagara was weaker down the middle, you could make a case that Gavin was somebody that they want to keep around. But they have so many centers on this team, and Doherty is the only right shot forward, which is crazy to think about. That we had talked about on with Ben Boudreau. So I think that also, when we look at the last lineup that I've got up on the video version for you guys following along there, and you had Loshko, Creed up front. Creed, sometimes could play. I think he played center in minor hockey. So, but again, those guys kind of switch over to wing sometimes. You've got Wassilyn, Asadorian, and Rubrick. Asadorian and Rubrick are both technically centers that have played center. You got Zada, Levin, and Doherty on the third line, and Galyanov, Ray, and Hoddles that was interchangeable with Matthew Paris or Rafik Dianov up front with Gavin Bryant out of the lineup like that. The forward depth, I think, has been better this year, and even when losing a guy like Matthew Paris, as big of a loss that he was, and not having Gavin Bryant in there, they've been able to, as you mentioned, be first place in the Eastern Conference right now. So when you look at the way that the lineup's structured, where would Gavin Bryant kind of fit into that lineup?
It'd probably be it would be second. Maybe it would go ahead of Asadorian, but Asadorian has been so good this year. He has been quiet in terms of secondary scoring, and that's probably where he'd fit in. And then Asadorian's our third line. Asadorian has 10 points in 9 games.
And Ben Boudreau has praised him a lot the last few weeks.
And then and again, the depth would have been crazy, but then you're losing either your starting goaltender, your number 1 center, or your top your top pairing defenseman, because Van Vliet's out there in every situation, other than penalty kill and everything else. Final minute of the game, plays the hard minutes. So it just a product of too much. Could you imagine this team last year if they were to lose Paris and Bryant? That just year over year, how much better the Ice Dogs are. I think that's the thing to kind of harp in on. You lose Gavin Bryant and Matthew Paris last year, and the team is just a shell, and we've lost both of those so far technically this season, and again, big losses, but 7-2, and it's just the nature of the business.
Yep, and again, we wish Gavin Bryant, nothing but the best, and we'll see where he is come January and going into the OHL playoffs. But definitely, like I said, a stand-up human being, and a guy that on and off the ice that will be remembered here in Niagara for a very long time. And wish him the best with the Gav's Corner initiative as well. As we move forward, though, Cam, we look at the updated player stats for the Ice Dogs. Kevin who we'll talk a lot about coming up here in a minute, leads the team with 18 points in 9 games. Andre Lashko, as you had already mentioned, 13 points in the 9 games. Ryan Rubrick, 11 and 9. Asadorian, 10 and 9. So they've got 5 guys that have a point per game right now because Jack Braidy has a goal and 8 assists as well. So they have 5 players that currently are a point a game or better right now. You look at Kevin He's shots on net, 45 shots. He's just been firing the puck at the net. But who's been really standing out to you as far as guys up front with how they've done through the first 9 games or so and just getting that point production? I know there a couple of depth players have gotten on the score sheet a little bit more, but head coach Ben Boudreau still looking for more consistency there in the bottom 6. But what are you liking so far?
Well, the fact that we have a point per game players. Last year we didn't have one, right? Like even Kevin last year didn't even lead the team. He was one back of Gavin Bryant with 54 points in 68 games, 67 games. So the offensive firepower, no one's disappearing. That's the biggest thing. I don't think it's one specific player. I think that everyone is playing to their potential. I don't think anyone's exceeding it. I mean, Lashko is an NHL drafted player. So is Kevin He. Ryan Rubrick broke every franchise record there was. And I don't think anyone's surprised if you watched Asadorian when he came over from North Bay.
Sudbury.
I always mix up him and Potaloo. I think that all those trades happened at the exact same time 2 years ago. When he came over, like he looked unbelievable on that first line to end Kevin's rookie season. So no one's really surprised at that, and the fact that he doesn't have to go up against the top line minutes, like the best players on the other team, right? Because that's Lashko and Kevin. So I'm not really surprised. Maybe Braidy with a point per game, but a little bit of that is that 3-point effort that he had just the other night. But still, like it's not surprising. More surprising that he has so much offense because he's more defensive, just very sound as well. But I'm more impressed that no one's disappeared. Last year at this time, if you were to go back and check the tape, like we were a little worried about Kevin. He had a really tough start because he knew the pressure on him, I think, and he mentioned that he was feeling it early on. Robrick and Zada had a tough start. Specifically Zada, but Robrick had a tough start a little bit again, just trying to get acclimated before he really got going. But no one's gone missing yet. And knock on wood, we avoid that. But there's going to be times in the season where the team goes through, a couple game losing streak. That's just how it is in junior hockey. Every one of these teams is good for the most part, and you're going to have game or when sound comes in. And of all the games that they've played so far, that's the one they should have won, right? And that's just going to happen sometimes. So the fact that no one's gone missing, Kevin goes a couple games without scoring. He's 4th in the league with 18 points in 9 games. Like you legitimately cannot ask for more of him. He has a point in 7 of the 9 games, right? And then you have Rubrick, who has really come alive after the first few games. And that's my thing more about the offense than anything. It's just that the depth scoring's coming a little bit, and if they start to come, like Mason Ray, for example, we highlighted him last game. If the bottom 6 starts to get going as well, then this team is really scary. Like, because I think that we can both agree that first place might be a little bit of a stretch. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they're going to hold off Brampton all season long. But I think that there's a real chance that they're going to finish in the top 4 and not the bottom 4 of the playoffs if they can get that bottom 6 to contribute as well as the top 6 to not disappear. And it doesn't look like they're going anywhere.
Yeah, again, like we came into the season thinking if they finish 7th or 8th, that would be a bonus. That was what we hoped for. Yeah, and then now, like you're thinking, okay, with this hot start, are they shooting maybe a little bit above where they're actually are? Maybe, but I mean, the numbers don't lie. They're first place in the conference right now. So again, there's still 60 games to go here, or 59 games to go. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But I don't think anybody had Niagara being in first place after the first 3 weeks on their bingo card going into the season.
No, absolutely. And like I said, the reason why I think that it's a little unsustainable is because like they're three or four of their wins are come from behind wins that are multiple goals down in the third period. The last 2 against
Kingston and Ottawa.
Kingston and Ottawa, like those are games you probably lose later in the season when everyone's kind of figured things out and stuff like that, a little bit safer. But the fact that you can't take away from the fact that they had the resiliency to do that. So it's not like those games don't count. The fact that they did those wins is the proof that they're a good team. It's just that obviously that's not a recipe for success. I think that they still need to learn how to play They need to learn how to win in the sense that when they're up big, they have shown a tendency to lay off that. For example, I believe they were up in that Owen Sound game, and then they were up in the North Bay game, which they almost blew. But again, you find a way to win. And that's been really impressive. But I think that they do need to figure out how to play with the lead a little bit more, and then hold on to it as opposed to just kind of laying off the gas. And I think that they're going to, as the season goes along here. But just a great start. Like again, as a fan, it's been so fun to go to the arena and expect a win because we haven't had that since Jason Robertson was an Ice Dog. So like it's just. It's been a real breath of fresh air, and the forwards, the defensemen, and it's funny because the defensemen, I want to talk other than Van Vliet and maybe Wysick because they're so contrasting in styles. But Braidy, Scott, Virgilio, they play so similar, right? That you don't notice them. And I've said this before that not noticing a defenseman is not a bad thing, because that also includes giving up a breakaway or blowing coverage, right? Like they just all play so well in the same style that we did not have the last couple of years. And when we saw the Podrekar trade and specifically the Frolov trade, that was one of those ones where it's like, ugh, like what is going on here? Frolov was a 16-year-old defenseman that kind of looked like he came into his own. And I got to be honest with you, I would have made the trade 10 times over given how they started and how they looked, because the D-core, other than Wysick being the only returning player, they all play hard. It is all so much more difficult to play in the defensive zone for the Niagara or against the Niagara Ice Dogs. And you got to attribute the management there for completely rebuilding the D-core in one off season, and then head coach Ben Boudreau for being able to implement a system where they all succeed, and got to give a props to that D-core because they've been. And Chinowski was the other one that I didn't mention, but even Chinowski, I think that he had his best game in the last game. So
yeah, and Jack Braidy. I mean, I don't think anybody expected. I mean, there was a lot of people coming in.
We got flamed for that trade.
Yeah, I mean, we had heard that there was a lot of people high on Jack Braidy, but again, it was still kind of unknown because he wasn't getting the ice time in Barrie with Marty Williamson, with their two other stud defensemen that they had up there. And now you see what he's able to do, and you look at that trade and say, wow, okay, this makes sense now why they flipped Tristan Bertucci after trading those picks, trading Podrekar, trading Frolov. Jack Braidy has just brought, such a great two-way game. He can jump up on the play offensively, but he's also very reliable defensively too, and it just seems like he's perfect for what the Ice Dogs want to play and what head coach Ben Boudreau, as you said, with the style. I think it's just been... It's been really good to see so far for the D-core, as you mentioned, all of them really contributing here.
Again, something to mention about the team build and things like that. We've talked about this and mentioned it before, and a lot of the other people that cover the OHL. The last couple of years, the Ice Dogs made trades just to make trades. They were trying to trade their way out of losing, especially in that first season where they were trying to get the Memorial Cup bid. And I can respect that. For what I mean? Like they were trying to do everything they can for the Ice Dogs. But hockey is a sport where chemistry is king. And you see it all the time in the NHL. I'll give you a perfect example. The Nashville Predators. They're 0-5, and they won the offseason by bringing in 5 or 6 players, right? Like you just don't... It's not something in hockey where you can just bring in players and expect them to play how they played with completely new thought processes and players and partners that they've got to deal with. And for the Ice Dogs this year, they really haven't removed anything. And Gavin didn't play, right? So like I mentioned, the hard decision of not trading Gavin and then removing, like I said, Van Vliet or Flores or whoever, it would have, not that it would have been a bad thing because Gavin's not as talented, because I think he is. It's just that, you have these guys and they don't want to touch the room, it looks like, in that sense. Not touch the room, touch the on-ice product, sorry, because obviously in the room, Gavin is still a revered leader and whatnot throughout the season, as he has been. So specifically with Jack Braidy, 21 games in 21 points in 62 games last year, which I believe was his rookie season, correct?
With Barrie?
Yeah. So he's already got 9 points in 9 games. Like, again, we're putting the cart before the horse, but the fact that he's got half of his point total already through 9 games of the season, that looks like, again, there was everyone around the OHL flaming the Ice Dogs for losing another trade. And even ourselves, we were like, okay, it wasn't so much the Bertucci trade and bringing in Braidy. It was the getting rid of Frolov and Padrekar.
And Pitts.
Because, yeah, and just because it looked like this team with the 4 16-year-olds in Rubric, Zada, and Galyanov, that it's like they're going to be the ones that all come up together. And now you're bringing in someone that's a year older, or the same age now, but it just, I think it stunned a lot of people. And again, you got to give them management credit. They're doing everything right this season so far. And one thing that I mentioned in the last one is I hope that they don't see the success they're having and they shoot their shot too early. Because I fear that's at the cost of, playing Armchair GM. This is the Armchair GM Sports Network, but that's at the cost of Crete or someone along those lines to go get a Musty or something along those lines. And I don't think this is the season for that. This is the season where you've had guys that have been building for 2 years now, let them cook together. And then next year is where you have the tough conversations, right? And for the record, please don't move Crete. That's not what I'm saying. He has been an absolute blast to watch as a 16-year-old. It was just, I don't know what other ammo that the Ice Dogs, other than trading out their entire draft, would be to get an overager or someone that's 19, like a Carter George. That's an interesting conversation to have. Carter George has another year of control. Flores is an overager, right? Like that's on the radar. In now that the Ice Dogs are good again and they're in the second year of their cycle, right? So. Again, it's so interesting and fun when everyone's winning, right? But the decisions that have to go on behind the scenes are just as important because, like you mentioned earlier, this isn't the NHL where you get a decade. You get 3 seasons, and then it's real hard to hold on that 4th season and not go full rebuild, right? It's not everyone's London or Kitchener where they just don't seem to miss ever really. So that's tough, and you've got to make the really hard moves.
And as you mentioned, not trying to change anything right now because the recipe is working. They're first place. If they were last place, maybe it'd be easier to have a conversation of, okay, maybe we could go out and make a big move, but it's working right now. Why change it if it's working? And as you mentioned, chemistry is big, and you never know if one of those players that do come in, do they fit in the room or not? So, again, those are all tough conversations to have, but as of now, Niagara staying put with their current roster. Gavin Bryant obviously hadn't played all year, so they really don't move anybody that was currently on the roster now that they're sitting in first place. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to discuss Kevin He being named the new captain, and we'll get the updated lineup because Braidy Wassilyn is going away to Team Red at the U17 tournament there. So stay right here. We'll be right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara Ice Dogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Back after this.
Did you know that the Global Pet Food stores in the Niagara region are all independently owned by members of the local community? We believe that pets are truly part of the family and are a source of joy in everyday homes around the world. Yet that living, loving experience usually doesn't happen all on its own, but takes extra effort to create and maintain. And we want you to know that the owners and staff at Global Pet Foods are always there to help you keep it going, any way we can, because we believe. Proud show sponsor of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara Ice Dogs. We hope to see you at one of the following locations across Niagara: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, as well as 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family.
Cully's Original Sports Bar is your ultimate destination for unbeatable food, drinks, and sports action in Niagara. Whether you're gearing up for a big game, winding down after a day at the office, or just looking for a lively spot to catch up with friends, Cully's has you covered. Their menu is packed with mouth-watering options, from classic pub favorites to unique chef specials, all served alongside a wide selection of craft beers, cocktails, and daily drink deals. With multiple TVs broadcasting the latest sports events, you won't miss a minute of the action. no matter where you sit. Cully's Original Sports Bar, a proud supporter of Niagara IceDogs hockey. Whether you're gearing up for the game or celebrating a big win, Cully's is the place to be before and after every IceDogs matchup. Check out their menu online at cullys.com. Give them a call at 905-684-1771 or check them out on Facebook, X, or Instagram for more information. Located at 223 St. Paul Street in the heart of downtown St. Catharines, just minutes from the Meridian Center. Open daily Sunday to Thursday till midnight and Friday to Saturday till 2 a.m. for those late night eaters. Cully's, it happens here.
The great guys over at Hockey Stick Man are sponsoring this video. If you play hockey but are sick of paying upwards of $400 for top-end sticks, check these guys out. There is seriously no better place to shop. The guys are fun, easy, and offer a stress-free experience from start to finish. They get pro stock sticks from major junior teams right up to the NHL teams and sell them for half the price that the same stick would sell for at a retail store. To further support their mission of saving hockey families money, they offer closeout options, which entail taking last year's retail models and blowing them out for less than wholesale prices. It's literally the best prices on the internet for their sticks. And the best sticks of all may be their Pro Blackout series, which provide a top-end stick with no graphics and literally less than half the price of a branded top-end retail model. It's always been their best-selling stick despite super cool pro stock options. It's a no-brainer to shop with these guys, and trust me, they are beauties. Head over to hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm and get $15 off your first order. That's hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm to get an additional $15 off your first order when you sign up on their website. Check out our friends at Hockey Stick Man.
Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thorold Stone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, and Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance. Check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983.
This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
This is Alex Asadorian.
Hey, it's Ryan Roberg.
This is Ivan Gallianov.
This is Gavin Bryant.
And this is the
Dog Pound Podcast,
the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's impromptu Dog Pound podcast episode here. Cam Halbert and Brandon Caputo are back discussing the IceDogs captaincy news today, trading away Gavin Bryant that we discussed in segment 1 today. We're going to talk about Kevin He being named the 19th captain in Niagara IceDogs franchise history. Thank you to everybody tuning in today on your favorite on-demand audio platform, and those watching us on the video version on YouTube, make sure to hit like, get subscribed, and smash that bell to stay up to date with all of our IceDogs content on the network here on the YouTube channel, and to stay up to date with all of our live post-game shows that we record after every single IceDogs home game live from the Meridian Center. So with that said, Cam, as we look at Gavin Bryant leaving, they were going to be naming a new captain, and you wondered if they were going to take a little bit to figure this out, but they went with it right away, and Captain Kevin He, 19th captain in franchise history, becomes the first Chinese-born captain in junior hockey. I saw that Bleacher Report actually put that out a few hours ago, so Kevin's getting obviously some national attention there, and being a Winnipeg Jets fourth rounder, we've even seen that we've gotten a lot more attention from Jets fans, and thank you to them that have continued to stay along with us, because Kevin He obviously being looks like a fourth round steal, by the way, for the Winnipeg Jets so far. So for you Jets fans out there, I'm sure you're pretty happy about that, wouldn't you be, Cam?
That's the thing. Like, you, when he went in the fourth round, and that's where he was projected. I think third round was the high end. But my goodness, I don't think we would have even predicted this. His start, and it's not just the skating has always been what's impressive, even as a rookie. That is what made him stand out as a rookie, and he had 34 points in 66 games, and the 21 goals as well. But I think that his shot is just so much improved. He had 279 shots last year, which is an absurd amount. And there was a lot of times where he was picking the corner, but there was also a lot of times they missed the net. And this year, that's not happening. And some of the goals, specifically the two that he scored in the comeback against Ottawa, they all kind of mix up for me. But against Ottawa, those were NHL drafted shots. Like, just it made no sense. And when it comes to, I mean, that's just on the ice. I want to give a personal story that happened the other night, I believe, when at the game in Ottawa, and kind of to just personify why Kevin as captain is the perfect selection. Number one, he's respected on the ice. He is never obnoxious or over the top. He gets into scrums, but it's never, you can always see him with the refs or with other players. It's never heated and mouthy. I don't know what the way to describe it. I think people are starting to respect him because he's getting national attention as well. But on top of that, where we sit in the Meridian Center, there was a section of kids down below, and acoustics in an OHL arena are pretty tough because it's a little bit more wide open and it's hard to hear sometimes when people are screaming and things like that. And I looked down because I heard chanting, and it was just he is him chants from these 10-year-olds, this whole team. And he hadn't scored, so it's not like it was just. And I said to you, I was like, man, that's just good to see. We haven't had that. Like, it was. Federico was a fan favorite, as he should have been, from Niagara. Wanted to play there. An entertaining style of hockey that he played, completely different than Kevin. But he is not shy to hit. He is frustrated and will almost take it personally if he loses the puck. He has some of the best skating in the league, and now he has an elite shot that is all just being put together and making people look silly for taking him in the fourth round, and he is the perfect captain. He has been nothing but polite and respectful, and he almost seems nonchalant, but it's not nonchalant, it's seriousness. Where Gavin was a little bit more sociable and I don't want to say approachable, because it's not that Kevin's not approachable, but he is just a humble, quiet leader, and the way he plays is loud. And I'm not talking just the goals and the skating. Like, he is a hard hockey player, and everything that you want in a captain as well. And he is replacing someone who I thought was, again, like I mentioned, another perfect captain in Gavin Bryant. And I'm excited because all the people in that room respect him. The city loves him. I can't say enough about what he's done. I'll be honest with you. Before I came on this show 3 years ago, I was a season ticket holder during Kevin's rookie season. He's the only reason I went during that season. That's what it ended up being. His ability and flash on the ice was enough to bring me to the building every single night, even though the team won 13 games all season long. So it's a long time coming. It's the correct decision. And I hope that he's here for his entire OHL career, because it is going to be a blast to see where he finishes. He's having I said this to you the other day too, he's having a Repkov type start to his season. Carson Repkov last year, second rounder, I believe, for Seattle, exploded offensively last year for Kitchener. And it looks like Kevin's kind of having that same kind of breakout, where it's like, you guys missed on a good prospect. And yeah, Jets fans, I say it a lot, you guys got a good one.
Yeah, and I mean, he just has another gear this year, another game-breaking ability that he didn't have in his arsenal his rookie year and his second year. And as you mentioned, seeing him grow into the young man now that he is the last 2 years, he was the most mature 16-year-old I had ever come across in my entire life. At that time, when he was 16 years old, I had never met somebody this late in my life, now being in my 30s, being that young and being so mature, beyond his years, and going through a very tough season that year with all the changes and the team not winning. And Kevin came to the rink with a smile on his face, and now obviously reaping the rewards of that the last 2 years of some really tough spots. But as you mentioned, I think that's what's going to make him a great captain. He's already a fan favorite. You hear when Rod Mahood announces Kevin, in the arena, he already has such a big fan base, and he's already so popular. The cheers are just getting louder and louder every time Kevin goes out on the ice.
And yeah, and again, it's not because he's overly vocal. Like, he legitimately lets his play be the dictator of his personality. You think of players like Galyanov, right? Galyanov's a great player, but very outgoing. It's easy to see why he's going to be a fan favorite, right? He's hilarious. He's a funny kid. Kevin is serious, but will do anything for his teammates and anything for the win. And a perfect captain that I would have been upset, to be honest with you, if it was anyone but him. Not that there aren't other potential players in that dressing room that could be captain. And I think we should bring up the new assistant captain as well.
Yep, Jack Braidy.
Jack Braidy. And, realizing that he's actually only had, for some reason, I thought he already played. He was a year older. He's got a couple years left there as well. I think that it's important to note that they are that core together. If they can stay, we've got 2, maybe 3 years of like this, 75% of the roster kind of sticking together. Right. And, when you have when the leadership group is full of players that grow together, their captain is someone that outworks everyone to an extent, right? Like that's the difference, right? There's players that will defend their teammates more than others, whether it's physicality or after the scrums and all of that. And I'm not saying Kevin's going to shy away from that, but I think that Kevin leads with like his work ethic off the ice just as much as on it. And you see him year over year, man. Like he's 6 foot 180, but he just feels he looks so much bigger, right? Like it's surprising, and you see it when he crushes people. Like that's the thing. That goal earlier in the season where he blew up Harding, that was the Brampton game.
Yep.
Just absolutely blew up the defenseman, and then Crete got the goal. But just like it's an aspect of his game that not a lot of people realize how strong he is, and that's only happening off the ice, right? And when you have the rest of the team that is young, the team is still very young, and when you think about it, right? We've got Gallianov, Roberk, and Zada are in their second year, and then Crete and Wassilyn are in their first. So that right there, and Frasca too. So you've got like 6 guys that haven't even played 2 full seasons, right? And you see Kevin just busting his butt on the ice and off of it. Like that's contagious and what you need. So I'm happy that we have, when it comes to the captain pick, we've got someone that's, knock on wood, going to be around for a couple of years. I think that's what they needed. Just like when head coach Ben Boudreau took over, we said that it's great because the management is clearly going to give him some run as opposed to chasing the wins, right? And when you have the stability, and even if it's not going right immediately, that it's stable, that goes a long way. And obviously Gavin was late in his career, was an overager, right? No matter what, he wasn't going to be the captain next year, right? Now you've got someone that could potentially be the captain for 3 seasons, right? So
yeah, letting coaching and players really, plant their feet and really have a long run at this. I don't want to really talk about this much, but quickly, I mean, when Kevin came in, that was a tough draft class because that was when Sam Dickinson was picked and didn't report to Niagara. So
imagine he didn't hit.
And if Kevin He didn't hit in that second round, if Adam Henridge didn't really, find him, do a good job of finding him from the North York Rangers, where the Ice Dogs would be now without, that Kevin He type player. I think the management takes a lot of flack for their moves early on when they took over, but I think some of these other moves that they've made as of late, again, draft picks flipping here and there, but when you look at the core players, as you mentioned, the core guys that are going to be here for the next year, 2 or 3 years, you look at that and say, they really did a good job of putting those guys all together at the same time.
I think there was, or just from an outsider's point of view, like you had management and coaching, right? And now it clearly looks like they're just working together in unison. And I think that if Ben were to say, hey, the group's not really gelling or things like that, you would see trades. But I think that we see him after all the games. And obviously it's been a lot better vibes than last year because winning fixes everything. But, you can just tell they're having fun, right? And I think that Ben has clearly been like, there's no reason to make moves. And Wes sees it as well, right? And he was learning too. He became the general manager 2 years ago, kind of not out of nowhere, but he had to fill in, right? And he is learning as well. And I think the whole franchise is just really not maturing. That's not the right word, but like they learned a lot. A lot of knowledge was taken over the last 2 seasons, and now they're exercising that knowledge. And like it goes to, I mean, even in this trade today with Gavin, that's a shrewd piece of business to get a 3rd round pick for a player that was injured and hadn't played yet, and you got to understand, Niagara had no leverage in this situation, literally none, because they had 3 overagers. One of them has to go, right? So getting the pick, and again, it sucks to lose Gavin, but to get a third round pick that they can then use that as opposed to losing a young player to acquire someone at the deadline to improve their team. If that's a whole other situation. But again, top to bottom, it's been a close to perfect start for the Ice Dogs, and I'm thrilled to watch it. I can't wait for the next game. It's the first time in a long time that I've felt like that.
Yeah, they got the Oshawa Generals coming in town, the Eastern Conference champions, on Thursday. But quickly on the Kevin He thing, an announcement here. Head coach Ben Boudreau said, "Kevin is the future of our franchise right now. He's our first NHL draft pick in 6 years, and signalizes that we are on the upswing, and he is going to lead the next core group of our culture. Kevin sets the standard of the culture and our group moving forward." Kevin He actually went on to say, I had no idea, but I'm very honored. I'm very honored to have the torch passed on to me, and I'm really excited for the group that we have now. It's been a good start, and we want to keep it going. And then they mentioned about Jack Braidy getting the A as well. So obviously, head coach Ben Boudreau was very adamant about Kevin getting drafted this year, and the Ice Dogs breaking through that glass ceiling of not having a drafted player since that 2019 draft with Phil Tomasino, and now hopefully this is the floodgates opening up here for the upcoming 2025-2026 draft. We know with Rubrick and Wassilyn as well. So, it's just all the things are starting to come together for this team, and it's just fun to be able to see them kind of blossoming all at the same time, and being able to have this early success just to show that they can get to that ability and they can get back into the a team that, again, as we saw in the CHL top 10 rankings, are on it for a third straight week. Who would have expected Niagara to be on the CHL top 10 list for 3 straight weeks to start the season? I know it's just a list and you don't want to look too much into that, but the fact that they're even getting that sort of attention and that sort of look is something that we have not seen in years.
And again, obviously Kevin's at the forefront of that, right? As he should be. He's fourth in this, and he was leading the league going into this weekend in scoring, and then had his first 2 games without a point. But nonetheless, he has really just really propelled the team. And we've said this before, once you have an NHL drafted player, there's at least one scout coming to watch him at some point, and it just kind of bleeds together. And we talked about next season that we potentially might have 2 projected first round picks in the NHL draft. That isn't common at all. Maybe if you're London or a team of that ilk, but when you have a team that's finished, third, last in the country in for 3 seasons, you don't expect it. And when you have other players, I think this is the most important part. When you have players like, give Musty an example. Okay, someone who still hasn't played yet, holding out, requested a trade, wants to move away from Sudbury in his final year in the OHL, because next year he will play in the AHL or the NHL. The Ice Dogs have a shot at landing those kinds of players, not just the top end, but the players that want to move. Niagara will be on their list. The arena and the facility is great. The area is fantastic. It is really just that the team wasn't performing, and now, the spotlight this year is crazy. I think that was out of nowhere, and people are like, "Oh, Niagara, all right, sweet." Next year, again, knock on wood, if Rubrick and Wassilyn just perform to their expected levels, not even exceed them, then the spotlight is just firmly on Niagara next year. And Kevin's going to be the captain, and he is a NHL drafted player that looks like he's exceeded his draft position 10 games into the season. So let's again not get ahead of ourselves, but still, playoffs look to be in sight, and I don't care if I'm saying that early. They're 6 points up on a playoff spot 10 games in. I didn't look. I'm just kidding.
And lastly, their depth's going to be tested again here because, as I mentioned before we hit the break, Braidy Wassilyn is going to be going to the U17s for Hockey Canada, playing on Team Red. That begins the beginning of November, that tournament taking place in Sarnia. So Wassilyn obviously has the 4th overall pick coming in. The last game for the Ice Dogs, he was on the second line. He's been kind of bouncing back and forth between that second and third line left wing spot. They've even put him with Rubrick and Zada, which the 3 last Niagara IceDogs first rounders.
Fun to see that,
which is really cool to see, and we've even seen him and Rubrick have some cool moments together already, which is really awesome to see, because we know foreshadowing into 2026, as you mentioned, with the ceiling and the sky's the limit for those 2 players. But with Wassilyn going to be out here at the beginning of November, that means somebody else is going to have to step up. And last year, as we mentioned, with no Bryant and no Paris right now, we would already be saying they'd be in trouble. And if they lose a guy like Wassilyn, then we'd really say they were going to be in trouble. But I think with the way that they're able to move the depth up and down the lineup, we've seen guys like, Sean Doherty even contribute as well. Max Crete moving up and down the lineup as a 16-year-old rookie. You'd hope that, if those guys like Dianov get into the lineup, that they can contribute as well. But I don't think that losing a guy like of Wassilyn's caliber, you don't look at it as the same way you would in previous years, where you lose a guy like that and you say, okay, Niagara's going to be really tested. It's just going to be interesting to see who steps up while he's gone at the tournament. Yeah,
I mean, if you think back to last year, we had an even harder couple of games because we lost Robrek and Zada, and they were both like integral to last season. So I think that's why it's important to note that they banked points. The first 9 games of the season, they're 7-2. It is going to be tough during the Wassilyn stretch, but I'll be honest with you, I have a feeling that Galianov will just go in there and play with Acidorin and Robrek, or maybe it's Crete,
or Levin.
Or Levin, right? Like it is like you mentioned, just not. Obviously, it's not the same when Wassilyn is flashed his creativity. I don't know if there's anyone on the team that has the vision that he. It's again it hasn't been on goals, so you don't see it in the highlights. It's the passes that he seeds through that you just are like, oh, that's why he was like projected, to go before 4th overall, but thank you. And that's only going to improve as he becomes more confident and things like that. But I'm happy that he gets to go to this. We talked about this last year with Zada when he went to, because Robrek was hurt in the, he didn't report, or he didn't go to the Team Canada under 18s.
The Gretzky-Helenka,
yeah, he didn't go to, Zada did. And when Zada came back from that, it's much like when players go to NHL training camps, even if it's on just pure, they're not drafted, but they go as a camp invitee. The confidence they come back with, because you go and play for Team Canada at any international level under 20, and you are amongst the skill. Crete didn't go, and Crete has looked unbelievable as a 16-year-old. So it just goes to show how hard that is to get to. And Wassilyn, I think, is going to do great. And when he comes back, I bet you he's even more confident. I bet you he has some of the best stretch of hockey the first 3 weeks after he comes back from that. And I think that he finishes maybe some of the chances that he's missed a little bit early on in his career. I have no complaints about his game, by the way. Like, it's been fantastic. But I think that when he comes back, you'll see the confidence shoot up even more. And with someone with his hockey IQ, we're going to be really fun to see.
It's going to be a fun stretch of games, and going to be fun to see who steps up and see him away at that tournament as well. As you mentioned, they come back with so much confidence after going away to play for Team Canada, which is not an easy thing to do. But they've got Oshawa coming up on Thursday, so that would be tomorrow by the time this episode comes out. And then they got the Windsor-Sarnia trip, and then they've got a rare Tuesday game against Peterborough. So, Cam, it's going to be a fun stretch of games here, and I know we'll be back in the video version for our monthly recap shows all season long, and that should be in a week or two. But we got another game recap coming up on Thursday, and it's just it's a fun time to be able to talk Niagara IceDogs right now, and be able to come on here in an impromptu episode and talk about passing of the torch, I guess, of the captaincy.
It's the best. It's been an absolute blast, and like I said, I get so excited for game days. And not that I wasn't excited in years past, but there's a difference when you go in expecting a dub and they're performing well, and it's just been really fun to watch. So again, for any of the team that listens, you guys are doing amazing. And if you're a fan and haven't come out because of the prior few games, I promise you, win or lose, you will get to watch some great hockey. The IceDogs are back, and it's going to be a great finish to the season.
Absolutely. We still got 59, 60 games left to go in this season, but it
feels like it's been 3 months. Like 9 games, like these 9 games, because of the way that they've won, because of the 4-game, a 4-0 start, like it just feels like this has been 3 months in these 9 games. And I almost want to fast forward a little bit because, again, I think that playoffs are like a thing now, knock on wood.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap up our impromptu episode here on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara Ice Dogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in all 4 of their Greater Niagara region locations. Thank you to everybody watching us today on YouTube and to those listening on your favorite on-demand audio platform. Until next time, for Cam Halbert, my name is Brandon Caputo, and we'll talk to you again very soon for the next Niagara Ice Dogs recap. We'll see you soon. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.